Today's video is sponsored by our very own spring store, but more about that later. Hi everybody and welcome to the deep dive. So scuba divers tend to have a higher awareness of environmental issues, and we have a unique skill set to access places that are normally off limits to most of the public. So while just about anybody can go around and clean and litter pick their local park, they can't just wander into the river and clean that up. The same goes with beaches as well. Most people can pick up and remove trash from a beach, but once they reach the waterline, it gets a little bit tricky for them. But not for us. So river and coast cleanups are a great thing to help your local community and environment, and if the water wasn't there and people could actually see the trash all over the place under the water in rivers and beaches, I think they'd be surprised at how much is actually down there. Only as soon as you add the word scuba or underwater, things get a lot more complicated, and you can't just jump in and start collecting trash because it can be quite dangerous, and there are a few things that you may need to consider first. So let's think about what you need to do to get ready for a cleanup. The first thing that you need to do is do your homework, and first of all you need to know whether you're even allowed to go scuba diving where you're planning to. And if you are allowed to go diving there, are you even allowed to touch anything, let alone remove something from the water? In a lot of areas there may be restrictions on whether you're actually allowed to touch and remove items that can land you in some rather hot water if you do. And while it's unlikely you'll serve any time for lifting some beer cans and shopping trolleys, it is best to find out beforehand what you're allowed to do and where before you announce online to organise volunteers or start packing your bags. So find out who owns the land and have a chat with them first. If the land is public, then ask the local council. They may even be willing to help out and provide supplies for you. Once you've found an area, walk the shoreline beforehand and see how accessible areas are and what the conditions are like at key times. The last thing that you want to do is organise a couple of days, get everyone around, get 100 people who are all excited to help their local community, only to realise there's no way they're actually going to get a diver into the water and out from that steep bank, or you have to fight a gang of angry geese to get to the area because you couldn't see them in Google Earth. Water movement. Is it a calm, babbling brook that time of year, or is it a raging torrent of a river? Tides as well. All of that you need to consider water movement. How long are you going to be there? Are the people going to need feeding? Are there any local restaurants that may want to help out or work with you to provide food and drinks? Or do people need to bring their own food? All of these things you need to consider. No matter where you're going, surface support is a valuable asset, and they need feeding as well. Getting things to the surface, that's fairly easy. Getting it out of the water and then onto dry land, that's the tough part. So if you can, try to work as a team. Divers in the water, crew on the deck or on the shore with lines to pull your salvage out of the water. It just makes the whole project a lot more streamlined, especially if it's fairly shallow water work and there's a lot of trash that you're going to be transporting backwards and forwards. Divers in the water, collecting the trash, snorkelers or even kayakers on the surface, attaching lines, and then crews pulling those lines back. Depending on how many people you can get involved though, obviously. So you're going to need catch bags, just sort of mesh bags, and lift bags to get stuff. Mesh bags, of course, they're good for smaller items that you come across whilst you're sort of going around. Lift bags, they help you lift heavier items, or just to lift that mesh bag when it's full, because they get quite heavy. You're also going to want some decent gloves to protect your hands from anything sharp or pointy. Visibility can disappear pretty quickly if there's a lot of like rummaging around on the bottom, so it's good to cover your hands and protect them, especially when they're wet obviously, just in case you reach out and grab for something that you weren't intending to. And cutting tools, plural. A whole range of cutting tools, knives and shears, so that you can cut through anything you may need to. A Z-knife, little line cutter, is great for a lot of things, but sometimes you just need a large serrated knife. Depending on where you're going and how much you may be lifting, it's worth looking at where you can responsibly dispose of what you find. It's all well and good getting it out of the water, but what are you going to do with it now? If you're planning a large event with hundreds of people, then there's going to be a lot of trash. Then you can organize some kind of a skip, or at least talk to the local council or waste management company. They may be willing to get involved if you give them a shout out online to contribute, because it makes them look good. But a lot of divers, they're so gung-ho about cleanups, and they just sort of go in, they do it, they focus all on like collecting the stuff, but then they're stuck with a whole heap of junk that needs to go in the back of their car or truck to take it to the nearest tip. So consider where it can go afterwards before you start. The best thing, however, that you can do before a cleanup, especially if there's going to be ghost gear involved, old left behind fishing gear, is to take a course on it. Ropes and lines in the water, they are just pure evil, and they just literally have a mind of their own, and fishing gear is even worse. Tiny, near invisible filaments that have very high breaking strengths and often barbed hooks on them are just a scuba diver's worst nightmare. But there are courses now where you can learn how to deal with it and the good procedures for lifting that kind of trash. Plan a good month or two in advance so that you can recruit other divers and their families as well. Give them plenty of time to fit the day into their calendar and spread the idea around social media groups. Not just scuba diving groups, but the local area, canoes and kayakers, local news outlets. The more places, the higher chances that you'll get more people and somebody will bring their barbecue or something, and you'll make a whole day of it. On the days leading up to the actual event, check the weather reports and keep people involved and informed. Send them messages, because people will forget or pretend to forget. So it's best to keep them informed and call it off if the weather is going to turn nasty, because it just sucks if it's raining, but it's for the greater good if you just call it off, rain check, reschedule it due to bad weather. Arrive at least an hour before everybody else is due to arrive so that you can set up key areas and you're not trying to herd all these different people. You want one main base with all of the information sit there, site assessments, safety information, the first aid, emergency action plans, all that kind of stuff in one area. Another area for supplies and gear, and most importantly, an area to put the trash that you recover. If there's a lot of people coming and you're collecting a lot of trash, you need to make it as easy and simple for them as possible. So plan an area that's easy to get stuff out of the water, and then from there, get it from where it needs to go to, like the skip or wherever it's going. Stay organized and make sure that everybody present is briefed on what their job is and what's expected of them. The easiest way to do this is some kind of sign-up check-in list when they arrive. As people turn up, categorize them and point them in one area and tell them what they're going to be doing. It is very important that you let everybody know to tell someone if they're leaving the site for any reason, especially if they're a member who's going anywhere near the water. The last thing you want to do is for someone to go missing and nobody notices. So at the beginning, try and take a roster, and then afterwards you can tick off their name whenever they leave the site. Don't be afraid to take charge. Make a quick speech to everybody, thanking them, warn them of all the safety hazards, and pointing out any key people with you that can help so that they know who to go to and the importance of signing out so we know where everyone is. And then get on it. You can easily waste a lot of time in the morning just chatting, playing with gear and stuff, but get your stuff together and get in the water. If you have plenty of time, it can be handy to do a survey of the area first, mark down any key areas or items on a map. That way you can build a map of the dive site and section it off, so those sections can be allocated to different divers. Some divers, if you've got lots of them, you focus on the large items, whilst others are just scouring the entire area for smaller items. If you don't have time for all of that, then it's best that you at least have some kind of search pattern, an organized pattern, so that you're not just dilly-dallying around and bumping into each other and covering the same areas twice. Work out your compass bearings, let everybody know those, and do some kind of search pattern so you catch as much as possible. If you can, it's good if one diver in the buddy pair is hands-on, whilst the other one is purely there for support, watching them, making sure that they're not getting tangled up in anything. Smaller items you come across, stow them in a catch bag as you come across them, and then when that's full, you tie that to a lift bag and you bring that up. For larger items, you can use that lift bag to lift that up along with your catch bag. This is a good reason to keep divers in their own sectioned areas. If there's a lot of you milling around, you don't want people swimming underneath that heavy load. If your catch bag is a little bit light and you feel like you can find a bit more, but you've come across something big, then send up a DSMB, a small DSMB, and attach it to the large item or nearby. You can always come back for it later and let someone else get it if they finish before you. Whilst you're doing the water work, crew on the shore can be sorting all out what you've been collecting so it can be recycled properly. If it's just a couple of you, then just take it easy. Stay organized and pay attention to everything like your depth, your air supply, and of course getting tangled up in anything. It's also really easy to get in the zone and kind of forget about things other than what you're doing, especially your buddy. So try and set a reminder in your head every now and then just to stop, turn around, find your buddy, make sure they're okay, check your numbers every so often so there are just no surprises. Do your best to identify an object and everything around it before you just thrust your hands forwards and grab something, because some things can be perfectly safe just laying still underwater for years, but as soon as you move them or remove them from the water as well, they can get a bit excited. Or they're actually attached to other things. So just slow down, assess the entire area and just think about it. I mean, I once chased a single fishing line for what felt like miles, going backwards and forwards, untangling it and then jumping from one outcropping to another outcropping. It's best to find the furthest end and then work from there instead of starting in the middle and going backwards and forwards. And unfortunately, sometimes it can be best to leave something be. If something is dangerous, especially, mark the location with a DSMB tied to a nearby rock or something so that experts can then locate it easily later. Or if there's an abundance of wildlife literally growing on this object, is it responsible to remove that along with all of these organisms from that ecosystem? If it's not posing a risk to other life and marine life, then yeah, it's already been claimed, so maybe it's best to leave it, unfortunately. And take photos and videos. I know it's a bit cringy, but photos and videos can help inspire others to join in next time, and people love the recognition of people taking your photo whilst they're doing a good deed. So see if you can have one person on media just recording things, and that's it. That's what they do all day. Just too many people with too many cameras, and then nobody gets any work done. But one dedicated person will get the job done, and they can put that camera down if they need to pitch in. Afterwards, you need to organize and dispose of all of your treasures and sometimes communicate with law enforcement and other entities, depending on what you find, obviously. So rivers and lakes are often hiding places for things after a crime, as I've been told. So you may come across firearms and other items that people may not want to be found. Police, obviously, they're not bothered by the 6 shopping trolleys or push bikes that you found, but a gun or a knife? Yeah, they're going to want to see that and probably take possession because it could help close one of their cases. Afterwards, thank everybody for coming and all of their help. Buy them a drink or something, and make sure that you count everybody that is accounted for. You got to make sure that everyone who arrived at the site has left safely. If you can't find someone, call them up. A good reason to have that sign-up checklist at the beginning is so that you can have all of their details so you can get hold of them just in case something like this happens. Some people just slink away without ever telling on anybody, so ask around, see if they told someone that they were leaving or if you can get hold of them before you start raising alarms. Someone may have seen them leaving and can put all of your panic at ease, but if someone is accounted for, raise the alarm, start looking. If that hasn't happened, break down all of your gear, stow it away properly, wash down if you can, and kind of drip drying whilst you're packing everything else away, and clean up the site afterwards. You want to leave the site as if no one had ever been there. If you leave behind a whole load of junk, then what's the point? And that is the whole point, really. You want to leave the area in a better condition than how you found it. But you always need to have safety in the back of your mind. Whether you're a 2-man buddy team, just kind of doing your thing, whatever you can, or if you're 100 strong. Stay organized, but don't overstretch yourself. You're doing a great thing, but remember that you have limits and you can always come back another day. You don't have to get absolutely everything all in one go. So how you do things exactly is going to change based on how big your crew is, their experience level, the equipment, the environment, the location, and literally what you're trying to lift. But it doesn't have to be a big planned event. A lot of divers today, they dive with just a mesh catch bag in a pocket or something. If they come across something during a dive, it gets caught. I've spent plenty of safety stops just kind of picking things off the reef that shouldn't be there. It doesn't have to be a full-on day of an event, but if you dive an area regularly and you're starting to notice a lot of junk, then put something together. If there are any helpful tips or tricks that you found out during cleanups, then let everybody know down in the comments. And if you're part of a cleanup crew, put that link down in the comments below. Links may be blocked at first, that's just how our comment section works, but if they're legit links, then we'll sign them off eventually. No rickrolling, we won't sign those off. But thank you for watching, everybody, and of course, safe diving. Calling all scuba divers, do you want to stand out from the non-diving crowd? Do you want people to know that you are a scuba diver? Well then, our very own Spring store will help you out. We stock tees, stickers, hoodies, phone cases, even mugs that all have a scuba diving theme to them. From our super popular emotional bolt snap tee, cave shark stickers, and our Scuba Dude hoodie, we have something for everybody, and our range is becoming more eco-friendly every single month thanks to Spring's eco-friendly range. Each order is printed fresh, which means less waste, less plastic, and it's better for the environment. And it also helps to battle clothing waste as well. To view our full range, just click on the link pinned in the comments. And hey, why not treat yourself to 10% off of your total order with the discount code DSN10. Okay, back to the video.